It's hard to believe it's been 10 years since Atlanta's infamous snow jam. It's a weather event no one living here at the time will soon forget. Thank you for joining us for this anniversary special. I'm 11Alive's Chief Meteorologist Chris Holcomb. On January 28, 2014, just over 2 inches of snow fell on the city. And those inches of snow turned into a nightmare situation for thousands of people. The storm caused utter chaos on the interstates. The majority of the roads were not pre-treated, and we saw bumper-to-bumper traffic as people rushed to get home from work. Then cars started spinning out on the slippery roads, and then jackknife semis blocked anyone from getting through, including crews trying to treat the roads. Drivers were stuck on interstates for hours, causing them to run out of gas and even abandon their cars in the middle of the roads. Some cars eventually were towed, but then people had to figure out where their vehicle ended up. The backlash was swift, spurring national criticism, and Barrett City and state leaders immediately started putting a plan together to avoid making the same mistakes ever again. Now, crews have a new method of preparing roads and drivers for winter weather. 11Alive's Jerry Carnes shows us what changed.
What was once considered unnecessary is now commonplace. Winter means it's time to make the brine, a mixture of salt and water that can repel snow and ice. Georgia Department of Transportation crews have mixed and stored nearly 2 million gallons of brine, enough to slather area roads anytime there's a threat of winter weather. That was not the case during the winter of 2014, when 2.5 inches of snow paralyzed Atlanta. GDOT's commissioner at the time was on the hot seat.
If some of the commuters around said DOT gets an F on this one, what would you say?
I would say that, looking at everything in terms of context, we're not satisfied with the result either.
The context is that more than 1 million people went to school and work on the morning of January 28, 2014. When snow started falling around noon, everyone tried to make it home all at once, joining the big rigs that had been encouraged to stay clear of Atlanta. GDOT crews struggled to navigate their way through jammed highways to icy bridges and drivers in need of help. Tow truck driver Josh Wisner faced the same issue.
We were doing everything we could do to get out there to help people, but you couldn't get anywhere.
Among the many changes over the past 10 years, an emphasis on pre-treating roads with brine. New equipment includes 6 multi-lane plows that can clear 2 lanes at a time. Sensors can alert GDOT to areas where the road temperature is below freezing and needs treating.
When we look at the data that technology gives us, we can make really informed decisions about where our crews go, where we focus our materials, where we focus our manpower.
New technology, new equipment, and a new approach. All because of a day 10 years ago that changed the way Atlanta views winter. In Forest Park, Jerry Carnes, 11Alive News.
So how did things go so wrong so fast that day? Meteorologist Melissa Nord has a closer look at the timeline of how it all played out.
The weekend before the storm, meteorologists were watching a system that would bring wintry weather to parts of Georgia.
We were talking about the storm all the way up, days leading up to it. It didn't look like much initially.
The bullseye looked like it would be central Georgia. Sunday evening, the National Weather Service in Peachtree City issued their first winter storm watch, which covered the south side of the metro. But as new information came in, the moisture nudged north.
Everybody was just waiting for that winter storm warning to move northward up into the Atlanta area. But around 10 o'clock the night before, instead of a winter storm warning, it was a winter weather advisory. That is still an upgrade from a winter storm watch. But I think a lot of people thought, well, it must not be as bad if it's not a winter storm warning. But then at 3:39 in the morning, that's when it was upgraded to a winter storm warning in the metro Atlanta area. And that's when everybody started taking things a little more seriously.
But the first flakes had yet to fall.
So a lot of people woke up, looked outside, didn't see anything, went to school, went to work, like a regular day.
Right on time, snow began in Atlanta around midday.
When they realized it was happening and tried to get home from work, that's when everybody got stuck.
Normally when it snows in Georgia, the temperature is at or just above the freezing mark, 32 degrees. We get a wet snow, like the consistency of a soft serve ice cream with only 6 or 7 inches of snow for every 1 inch of water equivalency. But this event was different. It snowed when it was much, much colder. It was the mid-20s. We got a fluffy, powdery northern snow like the consistency of baking soda with a snow ratio of 15 to 1. Snow compacted from cars on the roads, and the cold turned it into sheets of ice. As millions were trapped on the roads, temperatures dropped. It was 12 degrees the next morning. It rarely snows that cold in Atlanta. In fact, it's only happened 6 times in the last century. 2 of those happened on weekdays in the interstate era, Snow Jam 2014 and the 1982 Snow Jam. The Atlanta area was home to 1.7 million people in 1982, a third of its size in 2014.
So from a forecasting standpoint, everything was predicted fine. We knew how much we would receive, about how much we would receive, and the timing of it. But the reaction, we couldn't forecast.
Where were you when the snow started falling? While some were safe inside, thousands were on their way home from work trying to make it back home before the storm got bad. As Eliza Lucas reports, with so many people getting stranded, several Good Samaritans were out helping people in the middle of it all.
What started as a business lunch in Buckhead 10 years later is a day that sticks in Dee Johnson's memory.
12 o'clock, no snow. We come out and snow everywhere. Snow everywhere.
Snow everywhere. Crippling commuters' chance at getting home, Johnson among the countless who spent hours navigating their way, finally reuniting with her daughter at a hotel at 3 a.m., thanks to a stranger's kindness.
The woman was a Katrina survivor. She was a business visitor from New Orleans, Jessica, our angel. And she turned around and she said, "I have a suite and it's just me."
For Dee and others, these are the moments that stand out now.
People ran out of gas. Your family with small children walking along. Beautiful people, they lived close, came by with coffee, tea.
Social media capturing kindness amid the chaos. Guys delivering hot chocolates, neighbors rescuing stuck students. 10 years later, James Josie, head of GDOT's Hero Unit, remembers the good stuff too.
We had a lot of folks that jumped into their four-wheelers or their bikes and whatnot that could navigate through the tight spaces and come out there and help us out. So that was great to see.
James Roberts, among the many 11Alive met that day, stocked with snacks and supplies, delivering a little heart.
I raided the Valentine section I got everybody those little heart chocolate boxes.
And the compassion and coming together is what Dee will carry for years to come.
People could have stayed at home on their couch. They were safe, but yet they put on a coat and grabbed whatever they could share. It was truly moving and beautiful.
In Atlanta, Liza Lucas, 11Alive News.
In the wake of the storm, Governor Deal created the Severe Weather Warning Task Force to make sure Atlantans were more prepared in the future. And our very own meteorologist Chesley McNeil was asked to be a part of it. The mission? To prevent the massive gridlock from ever happening again. Doug Richards explains how it changed how state and local governments respond to storms now.
From 11Alive, it's 4:30 a.m.
This 2014 newscast started 51 minutes after the National Weather Service had issued a winter storm warning for Metro Atlanta.
Once you make your way down into the city, we have a winter storm warning.
With a forecast of 1 to 3 inches of snow, maybe some ice.
I'm from Savannah, Georgia, and we don't get this kind of weather.
Yet it took hours for it to feel like an emergency.
It seems to be the beginning of a snowstorm. That's what it feels like here in Peachtree City.
As snowflakes started to fall late morning, the Georgia Emergency Management Agency stayed strangely quiet.
They were not raising the alarm that morning. And in fact, some of the email traffic showed not a sense of emergency going on. I think the sense was that it wasn't going to be a major weather event.
Brian Robinson was an aide to then Governor Nathan Deal. As ice formed on roads, traffic started to snarl. Governor Deal emerged from an event at a downtown hotel and got caught in it with Robinson.
I knew we had a serious problem on our hands.
And check out the traffic on the connector going north. It is a standstill right now.
As daylight ebbed, the ice hardened and gridlock set in. Many people in cars had no option to get out, staying stuck for hours into the night.
Mother Nature has a mind of its own, and it does what it chooses to do.
Deal and Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed both took heat for the gridlock, the absence of planning, and the failure to heed the early morning winter storm warning.
The question is whether the state should have paid attention sooner than it did.
The magnitude of it started out saying it was going to be a dusting. Y'all were saying that. It was going to be a dusting.
None of y'all were saying this. None of y'all were saying we're going to have an inch of ice on the road and the entire region is going to get shut down. No one was saying that.
Yet that storm changed the state's outlook on weather emergencies, hesitating less now to shut down schools and workplaces. And even if it now seems like an overreaction, in light of 2014, it isn't.
We all learned a lot of lessons from this storm. So what should you do if you find yourself in a similar situation? And just in case it happens while you're driving, what should you have in your car? Karis Belger explains what you can do now so that you're prepared for the unexpected.
A busy Atlanta interstate grinding to a halt.
It never occurred to me that little precipitation could shut down the city so badly.
Natalie Worrell remembers the day well.
But it was north side, so I was like, I'll just go to the next exit and just turn around and come that way. That was not the brightest idea.
She found herself stuck like thousands of other drivers for hours.
The exit ramp was jammed with cars that had tried to get off and slid.
And she realized she would be forced to spend the night in her car.
So I was like, yeah, there will be no turning the car on, you know. I did for a brief moment to charge my phone, but other than that, I just left my car off.
Smart advice, according to Dr. Jane Morgan, considering temps were well below freezing.
The safest thing, especially in harsh weather conditions, is to stay with your car and not expose yourself to the harsh weather and the risk of hypothermia.
She also says keep supplies handy.
Backup battery, perishable items to eat, and water, multiple blankets such that you can keep warm.
I had cat litter in the back of my car.
And Worrell has learned to go beyond that.
I have a dog first aid kit, a pet first aid kit, but that can be used for humans. You just never know when you might need something like that.
So she's always prepared. Karis Belger, 11Alive News.
Thank you for joining us for this 11Alive special. As always, be sure to download the 11Alive News app so that you can always be the first to know about any weather events and conditions in your area.